Hey everyone, Rose Brown, the accountant therapist here, and welcome to week 2 of Tax Tip Tuesday Live. This week we're talking about really getting ready for tax season, right? Tax season literally starts next week, January 27th, so that's next Monday, right? But before I get into all of that, as I said before, my name is Rose Brown, also known as the accountant therapist, and I am the CEO of Brown's Advisory and Accounting Firm, where we provide an array of accounting services, including taxation for sure, preparation for both individuals and businesses. We are located in both Atlanta and Philadelphia. And if you do need to get in contact with us, I'll drop the details in the description. As I talk about the different things today, there's a lot of resources that we do have to offer, and it's free if you would like access to that, right? So, with that being said, just quick recap of last week, right, before we jump into today's juicy topic, if you will. So last week we talked about the Form W-4, which is the employee withholding certificate, right? And that's pretty much what you use to tell IRS how much needs to be withheld from your wages as an employee. And of course, if you have difficult circumstances, or I'll call it rather difficult, I'll say complex, you'll definitely want to go ahead and check out that video just to make sure that you've accounted for everything on your end, right? Especially if you're an employee, you've been working for some time, you have multiple jobs, you're married, just a whole different, if you have different things going on, you want to make sure that you have the right W-4 on file, because the IRS is now sending out letters in the mail saying, hey, you didn't do this, and if you don't do it, we'll do it for you. And the unfortunate thing about that, you never want the IRS to do anything for you. You want to be ahead of the curve, do it for them. Right. So let's jump into today's topic, because it's a lot to discuss and I want to make sure I cover everything. So for this video here, we're talking about getting ready for tax season, right? The last couple of years have been a little wonky, not really consistent. Sometimes we had surprises. Of course, COVID kind of birthed a lot of surprises in the tax realm, a lot of adjustment really. So now we're kind of somewhat getting back to normal. So what you heard 2 or 3 years ago, it's not what you're necessarily going to hear now, and not necessarily the things that you need to be prepared for, right? But ultimately, I know tax season is sometimes crippling for a lot of people, right? They don't want to file their taxes. It's just too much for them to even fathom. So the goal here today is to simplify the process, help you kind of get yourself together, right? All right. So as I said, we're getting ready for tax season. And the first thing that I want you to know is take inventory. Really reflect on what you did financially last year. What did you do? Did you have multiple jobs? Did you just have one job? Did you have a side hustle? Did you do some Uber, some Lyft? Did you go back to school? All these different things. What did you do last year? So that's the first thing you want to do. You want to take inventory of all that you did last year. All right. And again, stocks, salary, real estate, all these different things. Take a walk down memory lane and see all that you had going on. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video here, we do have resources on our website at www.brownsfca.com. We have checklists on there, and that's for individuals and businesses. So if you need something printed out or something on a screen that you can check it off, you can certainly head on over to our website and you can download that checklist for free, whether you're doing your own tax return or somebody else is doing it. All right, so you have access to that. It's free. It's on the website. Go check it out. Because what you don't want to happen is for you to hurry, file your tax return, or not really reflect on all that took place, file your tax return, and then find out, hey, you know what, I missed a document. Worse, the IRS telling you that you missed a document, right? Anything of that sort, missing a document is going to require you most likely to file an amended tax return, which is most likely going to cost you a little bit more, right? Or having to pay penalties and interest because the IRS said, hey, you know what, you missed this, you shouldn't have, and we're just going to penalize you. All right. So you just want to kind of be careful there. As I mentioned before, tax season starts next week, Monday. So that is January 27th. And what that means is that's the day the IRS starts electronically accepting tax returns. So if you are one of those lucky ones who've already gotten your W-2 and all your ducks are in a row, you can certainly be those innovators, right? You're one of the first ones to file your tax return, which is not a problem. So you want to go ahead and just organize yourself before that time. And per usual, tax season ends generally April 15th, right? So that's where we're seeing everything being ended this year if you're an individual. Okay. Now, as you keep these dates in mind, right, the start date to the end date, you have an interval of time that gives you enough time, I believe, to kind of organize everything so you don't rush. As I mentioned, you don't want to rush, because once you rush, you're going to find yourself missing something. And what you don't want to do is miss something, right? And if possible, just file early, right? After you organize your stuff, see if you can file early so that you can kind of get it out of the way and you're not left close to April 15 trying to figure things out, right? Especially if you owe, you want to get a head start on knowing how much you owe so that you can plan accordingly financially, right? And then, of course, in regards to your information, as you are sharing your financial documents, your personal information with other people, or using a software, you want to make sure that you're safeguarding your records, your social security number, your birthday, your address, all those sorts of things. You want to make sure that you are safeguarding it, because if you're not, it becomes exposed and then you become vulnerable, and that's a place you don't want to be in. So make sure you're safeguarding your documents at all costs. All right. And then, of course, I have to touch on this refund circumstance. So if you are due a refund this year, we should be somewhat back to normal, where it's a 21-day interval, right? Plus or minus, depending on the processing of the IRS. But usually they release refunds less than 21 days. However, you want to keep in mind, if you are eligible for the earned income tax credit, not even eligible, but if you claim the earned income tax credit or the additional child tax credit on your tax return, the IRS cannot release that until mid-February. So that what that means is, if you did file your tax return, let's say on Monday, you wouldn't be receiving your refund if you're due one until after that mid-February postmark. Okay, so you want to kind of keep that in mind. And I always love to remind folks that you want to be careful of who you're sharing your information with, right? The IRS won't call you, they won't text you, they won't email you, they won't DM you. You want to make sure that you're pretty much keeping your head on a swivel, because the scammers are getting smarter. They'll call you so demanding, it makes you feel as if, oh my gosh, they're about to come and get me. If you feel that frantic, it's most likely not the IRS, because they send you letters in the mail. When you get that letter in the mail, of course, you don't want to just throw it away. You want to read it, review it. And if you're working with someone, before you take action, I would highly recommend that you share that document with the tax preparer or the tax professional that you've been working with, so that they can advise you accordingly. Okay. Now, with regards to safeguarding your documents as well, you want to make sure that you've created your IRS online account. If you don't already have one, you do need to set up one. You will want to set up one, because ultimately that's where you see everything electronically before you see it in paper form, right? That's where you get to see, hey, if I owe, this is my payment arrangement. This is my, I can make monthly payments. It just gives you more access into the IRS world, if you will, rather than you having to wait for, let's say, a mail to come, right? And of course, if you do file your tax return and it's rejected, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind, right? A tax return can be rejected for a few reasons. It could be the information on there is incorrect, somebody else's claim, let's say you're dependent, or plain out fraud is happening, right? If this is taking place, you want to make sure that you mail your tax return upon that rejection. Right? So all these different things you want to make sure that you're keeping your eye out for. All right. So as we talk about, that was the framework to kind of keep you on your toes, if you will. So the next section here is broken down in two pieces, right? So the individual portion of it, and then if you are self-employed, right? Because some folks, they're more so on the individual side rather than the self-employed side. So if you were an individual, these are the type of things that you want to keep in mind as you prepare for tax season. Right? Again, reflect on the prior year to see, hey, what did I do last year? Did I have multiple jobs? Right? So the first thing that you want to do is look at that checklist. Like I said, you can head to the website, download it. It's free. Utilize it. Okay. This helps you along the way. So you want to look to see, hey, did I have multiple jobs or did I just have one job? Okay, perfect. Then I just need my W-2 or my W-2s. You want to make sure that you wait for these to come, because you don't want to file your tax return without it. You also want to determine if you had any self-employed activities like freelancing. Hey, did I do some consulting work? Did I do some website work for someone? Did I get should I be getting a 1099 NEC or a 1099 miscellaneous, right? So those are sorts of things that you want to also keep an eye out for. And another one to that is, did I sell any stocks? Did you sell any stocks? If that's the case, you should be getting a Form 1099-B. If you have a bank, an online savings account, or even a portfolio, you could be receiving dividends from your portfolio, from your online bank. You could be receiving interest. So those tax forms, you want to make sure that you are retrieving those, because ultimately what happens is with these tax forms, you're receiving a copy, the IRS has a copy. And what they're doing is they're waiting for you to say, hey, this is what I got. And once you put that in their system, what they already have, they match it up, right? Because the American system is an honor system, and they try to put things in place to safeguard so that people don't kind of slip through the cracks. So whatever tax documents you have, the IRS already has a copy. They're just waiting for you to submit it and say, hey, this is what really happened, right? So that they can kind of reconcile their system. Now, if you sold personal items, or let's say you were selling things through PayPal, Shopify, you may be receiving a 1099-K, right? And the law has changed concerning the 1099-K. So you want to make sure that if you're selling through these platforms, you are retrieving these documents. Again, the IRS already has a copy. They're just waiting for you to report your part of it. Okay. If you sold virtual currency, we're talking about Bitcoin, if you sold it through Coinbase, Cash App, all these different places, retrieve your documents. And around this area here, there's a lot of tax changes that are coming up. So you want to make sure that as you're selling stocks, you're kind of being careful from a tax perspective. Okay. If you had children or a child who went to childcare, you want to make sure that you get that statement from the daycare center, right? If you had gambling activities, that means you went to the casino, or you were even doing it online. You were selling stuff, just gambling, if you will, right? You want to make sure that you have either the W-2G or you have your win-loss statement. This is critical. I've seen in the past where folks forget that they had those activities, or they thought to themselves, hey, you know what? Though I was gambling, I had a loss. It doesn't even matter. It does matter, because the IRS don't care about losses generally unless you tell them that this has taken place. So all they're focused on is all the income that you have. So unless you report everything, they only know about the upside of things, not the downside. So you want to make sure, again, have that win-loss statement available. If you took money from your retirement account, you should be getting a Form 1099-R. Make sure you hold on to that. If you took distributions from your IRA, or if you made contributions into your traditional IRA, right? If you sold a home or any asset at all, you want to make sure that you are also reporting that, right? So even if it's your personal home, your primary home that you sold, and you know, hey, you know what, I don't have to, it's below a certain amount, you still have to report it on your tax return. The IRS likes to keep track of pretty much everything we got going on. That's just the system that we live in, right? If you went back to school, higher education, you should be expecting a 1090-AT. If you paid interest, if you paid on your student loan and you paid interest, you should be expecting a 1098-E. Okay. Now, if you made donations to, let's say, a nonprofit, you want to make sure that they are tax exempt. They need to be a 501c3 in order for you to get that deductible aspect of it. Right. And you should be retaining those receipts, because in the event of an audit, you want to be able to showcase that as proof. Okay. Now, if you are one of those folks who have opted into the IRS's IPIN program, you want to make sure that you retrieve that before you file your tax return, or else it is going to be rejected. Now, fortunately, you are able to obtain this IPIN online, and you can even opt into it this year. And just to give you a rundown, the purpose of this is to add an extra security layer to you filing your tax return. So before your tax return can be filed, you would ultimately need this. This is if you've opted into the program. Some people do this so that another person can't use their social security number to file their tax return unless they have this IP PIN. So this is just a good safety precaution for folks to begin to implement. And again, this is is something that you can obtain online. If you're already a part of the program, you should be expecting it to come in the mail from the IRS in the coming weeks. Okay, so we just covered everything concerning the individual aspect of it, pretty much. And again, check the website. The checklist on there is pretty detailed. You can actually check in the box. So let's switch gears to our folks who are self-employed. Maybe they are business owners, they have a side hustle, something of that sort. Now we need to focus on that area in terms of preparing for tax season. So the first thing that you want to make sure that, again, you reflect, hey, did I do Uber? Did I do Lyft? Did I do DoorDash? Any of these small things that you've done, you want to make sure that you are accounting for it. Even if you believe to yourself that, oh my gosh, it's so small, it's literally nothing. You want to make sure that you account for everything that you have done, right? That includes income. What's all the income that you retrieved or received from that self-employed activity? Expenses. Did you keep track of your expenses as it pertains to this particular activity? Now, with the expenses, you want to be extra careful because you have to be able to substantiate every expense that you place on a tax return in the event you were in an audit, right? The income, they won't pest you as much, especially if you get a 1099 NEC. The IRS already knows what you've earned, good, great. It reconciles. But the expenses, you want to make sure that you can substantiate it. That's the first thing. Can I prove what I am putting on my tax return? Okay. And is it deductible? Not all expenses that you incur for the business is deductible, and not all of the expenses altogether is deductible. So you want to make sure that these are deductible expenses. And just to give you a quick rundown, of business expenses, anything that is ordinary and necessary for the purposes of the business. That could mean, hey, I want to enhance my business. This will benefit me in the long run. This is something that other businesses in my industry is incurring, right? So you want to kind of keep that in mind there. And if you had a vehicle that you were using for business, were you tracking whether that's mileage or actual expenses? But ultimately, you want to make sure that you're always keeping track of your mileage, right? The rates change every year, but also if you are using a portion of the vehicle for business and a portion for personal, it's the mileage that helps you to get a percentage, right? To determine, hey, this is the percentage of the actual expenses pertaining to the vehicle that I'm going to be able to deduct. All right. So you want to make sure that you have a system in place. Every business owner, self-employed person, you need a system in place to keep track of everything that you have going on. This way, when you get to the time to file your tax return, you're not in a pickle, right? All right. Now, the next piece here is the home office. If you worked out of a home office as a self-employed individual, not as an employee, but as a self-employed individual, then you have the ability to take advantage of the home office deduction. And if you're taking advantage of the home office deduction, you have two options. You have the regular option, and then you have the simplified option. Both of them, in both scenarios, you do need the square footage of the home office itself, and then the entire home. Right. And then from there, you can determine with your tax professional which one is going to be best for you to claim based on the greater benefit. Right. So that's what you're looking for. Now, with regards to bookkeeping, again, we need a system in place. If you're self-employed, you need a system, whether you have pen and paper, hey, or you have Excel, or you have an accounting software. You want to make sure that you have something in place tracking all that you have going on. Again, this way you are ready and prepared to file your tax return. And that could mean you have an accounting software like QuickBooks. If that's the case, it's time to close the year and close 2024, review everything, make sure that we're good, right? Or if you're in a situation where you would prefer to have an Excel spreadsheet, but you can't put it together yourself, or you just need assistance doing so, you can certainly reach out to us, as I oftentimes make customized spreadsheet for folks who need assistance organizing their business activities. And that email would be info@brownsaaf.com, and I'll put it in the description as well. Let's see here. Now, if you were a landlord or real estate personnel, you want to make sure that you're obtaining your appropriate documents, right? So if you owned a rental property, you were renting it out, you had a property management company, they would ordinarily give you a statement, whether that whether that's a 1099, any miscellaneous, or they're giving you an actual profit and loss statement based on the activities of that rental property. But ultimately, if you have a property management company, you want to be in touch with them, all right? And if you had repair maintenance concern in that rental property, hey, make sure you keep track of everything because everything counts, okay? All right, so the last two pieces that I have here is the newer items to the tax code that a lot of folks are unaware of. So you want to make sure that you're paying very keen attention to this piece here. So if you purchase an electric vehicle, right? So you want to make sure documentation here is key as well. If you purchase a electric vehicle, you want to make sure that you have the purchase document, right? And the VIN should be on there. And if you're purchasing it from a dealership, they will be giving you a form 15400. Now that form there is going to let the preparer know, hey, a tax credit was claimed on this or it wasn't, right? That form is what's going to be needed to reconcile that particular credit on your tax return. So electric vehicles afford individuals a particular type of tax credit, right? Which is worth up to $7,500. So you can't imagine how strict the IRS will be concerning this. So you need to make sure that you're retaining all documents concerning your electric vehicle. And then the final piece here is, did you make any investment into your home from an energy perspective, right? Any improvements, those sorts of things. You want to make sure that you have receipts, you have your contracts, that they are Energy Star rated, because that's generally the only time that they will give you a tax benefit, right? So all of these things here, document, keep them. Okay, so just to summarize all that we talked about today, it's just pretty much getting ready for tax season, right? If you're an individual, take inventory of all that you did in the prior year. Did you have multiple jobs? Did you have a side hustle? What did you have going on? Did you go back to school? Did you take out money from retirement? All these different things. Take a step back, look, ponder, what did I do last year? And if you're a business owner, same thing. How much money did you bring in? How much expense did you out, right? And again, you don't have to sit and try to figure this all out by yourself in your memory bank. On our website at www.brownsfca.com, there's a checklist for individuals and there's a checklist for businesses. So you can use that to help yourself to kind of check off all that is applicable to you so that you're able to say, okay, this is all that I had going on. Now I can go grab those information. All right. Well, I hope this was very helpful to you. Again, my name is Rose Brown, also known as the Accountant Therapist, and it was a pleasure being live here with you all. And I will see you next week at 7 p.m. for another live as we talk about, another facet of tax season.